Welcome to the Shiawarma show.
The only show that ain't boring and actually discusses real stuff in complete depth. So fasten your seatbelts, folks, because we ain't playing games here.
Yalla, ready? Okay, I'm me, she's she. If you don't know us, that's your problem, not ours.
So let's do this.
So today is March 26, 2017. Kath, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about Yemen because as of yesterday, March 25th, Yemen has entered its third year of war. Thank you very much, Saudi Arabia.
3 years.
So today you had about tens of thousands already in Sana'a, which is the capital of Yemen, that went out and to protest the war. And you had protests and demonstrations and whatnot all over. And I mean, Washington, New York, London, Paris, whatever, wherever. People came out actually quite, in droves. So I'm actually quite surprised because people are starting to care about Yemen, which is a first, because it's been 2 years that people have been murdered in their bed.
Hold on. You're saying people care about Yemen, right? You're saying people care about Yemen, but I'm not convinced in this. Because I stick on the BBC, I stick on CNN, I stick on all of this. I don't see people talking so much about Yemen. I see people saying that, these lovely Saudis, they're trying to reestablish the democratically elected government of Yemen, and you've got these. I don't know. They're calling them.
Yeah, that would be who, by the way?
That's this.
Because I'm not quite sure. First of all, I'm not quite sure on the definition of democratic in that case, but that's me.
Hey, look, this is Washington's definition. We got nothing to do with that. It's Riyadh's definition, and this is funny, right? This makes no sense. Riyadh talking about democracy. The country,
I know, I love this. Don't you just love it when theocrats just give lessons in democracy?
This is a country that doesn't even consider women to be human. They're mammals now, though.
Actually, here's the thing. Do you know, I remember a few years back there was this lovely Iraqi MP woman who made a really good point. Because she was saying that the last time that they actually exercised democracy, in Najd or Hijaz or Saudi Arabia, whatever you want to call it, that place, was actually when they tried to kill the Prophet. That was interesting.
Well, what can you say? They have many years of no democracy.
But at least they tried. Come on, you have to give it to them. It's like brownie points for trying.
But coming back to now, right? What is the deal going? What is actually going on with this Yemen, Saudi Arabia thing? Because look, I don't know too much about Yemen, but what I see is these people. I keep hearing about them on TV. They're called the Houthi. And what are these people? What's the deal with them?
What are these people? I think a lot of people would like to know and need to know who are these people actually, because they keep labeling them under the wrong names.
Okay.
Well, it's quite simple in Yemen. Those they refer to as the Houthis. By the way, the Houthi, they're just a tribe from northern Yemen. Okay, from Saud. So it's literally as if you were to say Londoners. Okay, you just and you said that suddenly London or Londoners just became Great Britain. So the Houthi basically are just this one tribe from northern Yemen, and once upon a time, because they were oppressed by Saudi Arabia and the former regime in Yemen, created a resistance movement. Okay, but at the very beginning, back in the late 1994, 2000 and onwards. It was really just about them and trying to promote their own rights. And then 2011 happened, and then suddenly they literally put the finger on something bigger, on the idea that Yemen needed to be independent from Saudi Arabia and Western, patronage. Then came about this grand resistance movement that had nothing to do with the Houthi, because the Houthi are just part of that resistance movement. And within this, you have a whole array of different, political factions and tribal factions and just independent, just regular people.
So hold on a minute.
Who don't associate to the Houthi necessarily.
So hold on a minute. So you're telling me that this resistance movement that's been fighting this battle for 2 years now.
This invasion, you could call it this, or genocide, depending.
This is not just the Houthis. The Houthis are a small part of it.
Of course not. Can you imagine, seriously, can you imagine, you have, because you would be basically arguing that you have about, 5,000 guys, at best, standing against like a military coalition of 36, 40 something countries. I mean, if that was the case, I'm saying they're good.
Well, you see, this is what I was thinking.
Or they invented a way to actually die and then come back.
See, this is the thing. Maybe that's what's happened. Because remember, right? Remember, there's something really important we need to bring in over here. Because these Houthis, we get told by the media. I was watching a really interesting Hard Talk interview with Dr. Morandi, who was being grilled by this lady on BBC's Hard Talk the other day.
Mm-hmm.
She kept on saying that Iran is supporting the Houthis, right? And so, I mean, is there any truth to this? I mean, Dr. Morandi said there wasn't, but what's the deal here?
What's the deal? Well, again, I mean, they had to find some kind of a way to either, rationalize or actually justify the why they went to bomb the crap out of Yemen, and basically obliterate a nation, kill, thousands upon thousands of civilians, because of course, whatever death toll they tell you is not the real one.
But here's
so
something
they
for you,
invented
right?
this fairy tale where they say Iran.
But this fairy tale doesn't make sense, because this fairy tale is stupid, right? I'll tell you why I think it's stupid. Because these people are stupid. Why is it stupid? I'll tell you why. It's stupid. It's stupid because, let's say you have Saudi Arabia and the BBC and all of these guys saying that it's Iran, constantly doing, I don't know, feeding the Houthis or feeding this resistance and everything,
painting doors green.
Right? Apparently, Iran is controlling all of that war in Yemen,
they have a remote control and they're playing war games from a distance. They're really good at this.
So, in that case, right, why don't the Saudi Arabians and whoever their allies are, I don't know, whoever, why don't these guys turn around and point their guns towards Iran and try and fight Iran directly if Iran really is the problem?
Well, number one, that's an easy one, actually. Number one, they can't, because that would require them to know how to fight a war. That would be the first thing. Second of all, it would require a little bit of courage on the part of Saudi Arabia and them to actually have an army to fight a war. Because you have to remember, it's they're using mercenary army, so they invented mobile wars where they renting out basically meat for the cannons, but they don't know how to win. And here's the thing.
Go on.
I mean, why is it that Iran is not? Because I'm going to say, let's argue that Iran is involved in Yemen. Let's play.
Okay.
We know that let's be rational about this. If you look at the setup in the Middle East, Iran is actually involved in Syria and in Iraq. I mean, it's not a state secret. Everybody knows about it.
Yep.
General Soleimani is jumping everywhere like a ninja. And guess what's happening? In Syria, Daesh is running, literally through the hills.
Yep.
And then in Iraq, the same thing is happening. So there's a pattern where when Iran gets involved, Daesh tends to run away in the other direction. So,
in fact, on that subject, I just want to bring something in on that point.
If Iran was involved in Yemen, then I think that by just about now, 3 years in, I think that Sayyid Abdel Malik al-Houthi would be doing his speeches from, I don't know, Mecca, Medina, Riyadh. I mean, one of them.
See, this is interesting what you said, right? This is really interesting because there was a report the other day that Turkey is taking the Daesh guys that are running like scared little rabbits from Syria, from Iraq. Turkey, Mr. Erdogan, is throwing them onto nice luxury jets and flying them to Aden.
Yep.
Right? Now, what are these people doing in Aden? These guys are psychos. These guys are nut jobs. Why are they coming to Aden?
The thing is that of the entirety of Yemen, Aden is actually the only place that is under, and I quote, the control of Saudi Arabia. So it's interesting, isn't it, that, where, the resistance movement actually is, nothing gets through.
So
and then where, the Saudi are, ruling mighty over the population, then suddenly Daesh is allowed in, suddenly Al-Qaeda is thriving, and then people are getting their head chopped off.
So hold on, we're looking at Aden, right? Aden is in the south of Yemen, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's a southern seaport.
Yep.
Right? Whereas Saada and all these places are in the north. This is on the area that is close to the border with Saudi.
The border with Saudi Arabia and Yemen.
Okay, so Saudi Arabia actually doesn't control its border region with Yemen. It controls the south of Yemen.
But it's even worse than that, is that the border that Saudi Arabia claims is actually not its border. Because you have to remember
Okay.
that the 3 southern Saudi Arabian provinces that it claims are actually Yemenis. So you could
Oh,
argue that actually, their borders are just not their borders.
interesting. Interesting. This is why you hear a lot about like border skirmishes and inverted commas, and
It's
we've
not
heard of
borders. They're not border skirmishes. What you're talking about is about people trying to free themselves from a foreign invasion. Nothing to do. This is the thing that drives me insane is that people keep talking about Najran, for example, and saying,
yeah.
"Oh my God, something happened there." They pledged allegiance to Abdel Malik al Houthi like 2 years ago. Can you please catch on?
But isn't that Yemen influencing or getting involved in the affairs of Saudi Arabia? Because you're going to get some of these media nut jobs. You're
How?
going to get these psychos.
Okay.
They're going to
how?
say, no, I'll tell you how, right? I'll tell you how these people are going to be thinking, right? They're going to say that Najran is Saudi Arabia in inverted commas, right? As per the map, right? And if the guys in Najran have declared their loyalty to to Abdul Malik al-Houthi, that means that Yemen is influencing or is invading Saudi Arabia, right? So how do you answer that? How do you deal with that? Is that true? Is that what's happening?
Oh no, that's not what's happening. I'm going to say that Saudi Arabia bought Yemen out because Ali Abdullah Saleh back in 2000, wanted to line up his pocket and decided to sell literally land that didn't belong to him because it belongs to Yemen. And now the Saudi decided that they want to imprint their name on it again because
Okay.
doing it to the Hijaz wasn't enough. And they just decided to just, invade a little bit more and erode a little bit more at the Arabian Peninsula.
Okay.
But you can't just come in a country because here was okay. Let's just take this argument to the end.
Mhm.
I mean, if you recall, Russia, Crimea, and the whole of NATO debacle,
Yep.
and how Washington accused Russia to invade Crimea, whatever.
Yep.
But isn't it the same thing right here? Can't you just turn this argument on its head and say, well, Saudi Arabia just bought a country. It doesn't mean that this country suddenly becomes the property of, because that's not the way that sovereignty works. You can't just buy sovereignty. It doesn't work this way. The people have a right to political self-determination. And last time I checked, imprinting your name or just, tattooing someone on their forehead and say, you belong to me now, doesn't make it so.
But that's interesting. When you talk about names and imprinting in Saudi Arabia, something came into my mind. I wanted to talk about this earlier on, but it sort of slipped my mind. Have you ever heard of anything as stupid as this, right? I mean, this is epically stupid, right? You have a country that is named after one family, a family that is a tiny minority of illiterate idiots, right?
Najdi, they call.
Yeah. Now, how does that even work? I mean, it's like saying England or Britain would become, I don't know, Windsor Britain or something stupid like that. It makes no sense because, our ruling family is the Windsor family, I suppose, right?
I don't know. I think they just had a complex of inferiority and then they just took it to a whole brand new levels of crazy.
It's kind of crazy.
I don't know. Is the worst part is that people don't seem to have a problem with it. They say, oh, I'm from Saudi Arabia. I mean, oh, well, yippee you. You just get imprinted by someone. That's awesome.
This is what it feels like. You get some of these guys from, different parts of what I've always called it occupied Arabia. And
I think it's a fair assessment.
Yeah. You have all of these guys and they say, where are you from? Say, I'm in Saudi. You think, hello? You're from Saudi?
It's nice. It just takes allegiance to a whole new degree of enslavement. That's just,
This is mind wash. This is mind control. This is brainwashing. This is insane.
It's just this is exactly what happens when you have enough money to throw at people and just completely architect a new reality. This is what they've done.
But is it money or is it fear? Because in Saudi Arabia, you got some pretty crazy things going on, right? Like a few years back, we had the episode of Sheikh Nimr, right? Now, people have called Sheikh Nimr, a dissident. They've called him this, they've called him that. But actually, all he was a scholar, a Muslim scholar, who was turning around and said, guys, look, we want some rights. It's not asking too much, And what did he get in return for that?
No. In Saudi Arabia, you can't do that. That's apostasy right there.
So asking for your right, this is why women can't drive.
Now, this is what women are just mammal.
Yeah, this is interesting, right? Women,
you can't have a cat drive, can you?
Hold on, right? So to the audience, right? Guys, get this, right? And I want your comments on this. In Saudi Arabia, or the country known as Saudi Arabia, which we will here henceforth talk about as occupied Arabia, women are not considered human beings. They are considered...
And the jury is still out on whether they have a soul or not.
The jury is still out on whether they have a soul?
No. They need to have, because they had a conference where they established that, okay, fine, women are mammals, so that we're good with that.
Now, that
now they need to establish whether they actually have a soul.
But how many women attended that conference? Bear in mind
that they actually, that it's okay for husbands to eat their wife. I'm just going to go on a limb there and just say that they don't have a soul, because otherwise that's murder. So they can't,
Hold on. Back up. You're saying that Saudi, I don't know, law or their ideology or whatever it can be called.
So
Wahhabism says it's okay for a husband to eat his wife.
If he's hungry. Only if you're hungry. All right,
so get this,
if you ain't hungry, you can't eat her.
So hold on. This is kind of crazy, right? This is weird. So
it's insane. It's coming from the mouth of the Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia. You know, the dude that led the prayer.
I'm sorry. Is that super ugly guy? He's a really scary guy?
He's like this. How do I put it? If Sauron had a child, he would look like that.
But this guy is kind of freaky, right? So hold on. But I want to understand. Hold on. I want to understand this eating your wife thing a bit more, because this is messed up. So you're telling me, I'm walking down the street, I feel a bit peckish. I can't find any food. So I can sit down, chop my wife up, stick her in a bun, and have my wife burger.
Yeah, you can have a beautiful shawarma.
I can have a wife warma.
Yep. Yeah, it's halal because,
Okay, hold on a minute, right? So they're saying you can do that, but actually then Saudi Arabia is put on the Human Rights Council of the United Nations.
Yeah, of course.
How does that work?
How does it not work? I mean,
Wait, women are not human.
I mean, please find me a nation right now on the face of the earth that is more repulsive than Saudi Arabia in terms of, when they execute people. Because, some countries are cool with the death penalty because, there's an argument for it.
Yep.
So I'm not going to argue this. But, there are ways to do it, right? No, what do the Saudi do? They chop off your head.
But that's exactly the same as what Daesh
They have an obsession with bloodshed. So, of course, it's the United Nations here. So it's not exactly, euphemism for, lunatic insanity. So of course, they're heading the council. Why not?
So hold on, right? So you have Saudi Arabia performing acts that the world condemns Daesh for. Because, Daesh did the videos with the beheadings.
Oh, no. Hey, hold on a second. It's like Daesh takes its cue from Saudi Arabia. Because let's not imagine that Daesh actually sets an example and that the Saudi followed suit. No. I mean, if you want to look at Saudi Arabia and actually, Wahhabism's like propensity for bloodshed and beheadings, you need to go back a lot in history. And then you'll understand that, there are precedents in history for that. So, Daesh is taking its cue and actually was inspired by Wahhabism, not the other way around.
So would it be fair to say that Daesh is the offspring of the Saudi project?
I'm going to say foot soldier.
Okay. So now this is beginning to make a bit more sense now, right? So you have the Saudis not considering women as humans.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, because women are not humans, they have no rights. Therefore, Saudi, you can eat them, you can have a wife warma. So then you have Saudi, which is put on the UN Human Rights Council by the British, by the Yanks, by whoever agreed.
For neocons in some circle.
Well, yes, neocons, Zionists, all of these psychos, right? But at the same time, in England, if someone was to eat their wife, they would call it cannibalism.
Yep.
Right? But when Saudi Arabia does it, it's cool.
Yep.
And that also leads on to something interesting. In Britain, we talk about being responsible traders, for example,
mm-hmm.
right? Our government talks about we only sell weapons to people who are not going to use them on civilians. Yet everyone knows that the British...
I know, but that's cute because, when they say this, but then in the same sentence they explain to you that they're selling cluster bombs and they're illegal.
Exactly. This
So
came
by
out.
definition, if a nation is willing to buy those cluster bombs, there's something inherently wrong with them.
Especially
and then you expect them to just look at them?
Well, this is the thing. This is what doesn't make any sense. This exposes the hypocrisy of all of these governments and the United Nations. And it says, hold on, guys. You're saying on one side you say that, yes, we condemn any human rights problems. And they're always pointing the finger at Iran. Yeah, we'll come back to Iran later on. Maybe in this episode, maybe in a future one. But they keep pointing the finger at Iran. Iran this, Iran that, everything, all of the problems in the world apparently.
It's the source of all evil in the world.
So it would seem, and this itself is a big question. I think we need to reserve an entire episode talking about Iran. But, we'll come back to that. At the same time, when they're saying all of this, they turn around and they say, Saudi, here, have some cluster bombs, have some, I don't know.
White phosphorus, depleted uranium. Yep. I mean, it's fun.
All of this. Have all of this. Pay us your oil money and enjoy. And then when Saudi uses that, along with their coalition of nutjobs, and they throw them on Yemen, they destroy funeral parlors, schools, universities, the actual infrastructure of the country, the UN supports an embargo blocking any aid from coming into Yemen.
I know, but he's not. This is where it gets crazy. Okay. You just had an article, an op-ed that was published in Newsweek, where you had the Yemen ambassador to the US, who actually had, I don't even know, like the chutzpah, they say, of saying, and I quote, Houthis have directly contributed to the humanitarian disaster in Yemen by preventing aid from reaching vulnerable members of the population.
Hold on. Who is this guy? The Yemen's ambassador?
The Yemen ambassador to the US. So when you think Yemen ambassador, you're thinking Hadi's boys. Hadi is the guy that was elected a long time ago, 2012, in a one-man election.
But hasn't Hadi's term finished?
Oh yeah, a long time ago, like 2014, and then he resigned. So not only was he's not supposed to be president anymore anyway, on paper anyway, he resigned not once but twice and then went away. So, I would say that he forfeited his right to open his mouth a long time ago.
But this is his guy.
But for some reason, they're fighting a war over him, apparently. Or so we thought.
But this is his guy who professes to be the Yemeni ambassador in the US.
Yeah.
Who says that the Houthis, or the resistance movement in Yemen, is responsible essentially for the humanitarian disaster, the famine, the lack of water, the medical shortages. How? The Houthis,
it's a good question, but I don't know how, because last time I checked, it was the United Nations that was actually manning the humanitarian blockade. And last time I checked, it was back in 2015 when Saudi Arabia actually had babies at the UN, trying to convince everybody and threatening everybody that should aid be ferried anywhere near northern Yemen. Okay, so basically you need to translate this as in like anywhere near where the Shia that actually exists or breathe. Then they would cut funding completely and altogether. So that's called sectarian profiling, and that's actually illegal. But the UN went along with it because they didn't want to lose its millions. So I'm not quite sure as to how the resistance movement is actually responsible for manning a blockade that is actually harming its people. Because we need to remember something here is that when we talk about, the Houthi and the resistance movement in general, those people are Yemen. Those people are actually fighting for their country. So you can't turn around and say, oh, they're committing war crime in their country, because that would be stupid. You're not going to shoot yourself in the foot and say, oh, look, I'm bleeding. It makes no bloody sense, because of course they're fighting a war because there's an invader coming through. So what do you want them to do? Bend over backward, open the door and say, hey, take everything. Why don't you?
But this
so they're fighting.
But this is
why
what's
would
crazy.
They starve themselves? It makes no bloody sense. But still, you had one guy in Washington who thinks it's fun to say this because he's thinking, so many lies have been told. Let's just add another and see what happens.
But this was actually published in what many would say
a
reputable magazine.
Guess what? Arab news, because surprise, it's acting a big mouthpiece for propaganda.
But the thing is, look, in all fairness, right? Like, I know we're a bit of a funny show, but jokes aside, because this is a serious matter, right? You have the criminal that is responsible for killing thousands, if not millions, of people in Yemen over time.
Yep.
You have him blaming the victim
Yep.
for essentially dying.
Yep. Well, excuse me, but it's it has been used before. I mean, the technique is not new. There's like what this it's called. Oh yeah, that Zionism. There you go. They do this too. Because it's Gaza's fault.
Okay, now we've got something interesting, right? So we have this thing called Saudi Arabia. I'm sorry, I have to laugh when I say.
Yeah,
Saudi
I know you
Arabia,
can't pronounce it. Right? It's difficult to like. Yeah,
makes no sense. And you have this entity called Israel, right? Both of these two entities are built on blood, are built on deception, are built on
crime against humanity,
people.
many fascism, if you can call it that.
Yep.
It actually goes beyond that, but
absolutely. And yet these two countries provide the largest amount of money to, wait for it, the lobby groups in London, Paris, Washington, here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? And the world just sits down, sticks its fingers in its ears, or possibly elsewhere, and does nothing.
Pretty much.
Has the world gone mad? This is the question.
No, it's just because here's the thing. For the longest time, it has happened in Palestine. It has happened in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, in Bahrain. Who cares, right? But now, here's the funny thing: is that now it's actually coming to Europe. So the West now is actually a sitting duck.
Well,
to the crazy that is Saudi Arabia and Wahhabism. So now they're starting to kind of like catch on, because I think there's a fear. Because if you look at mainstream. Okay, because I don't believe that mainstream actually cares about reporting news, because otherwise we won't be doing just what we're doing right now. Now they're actually scared, because they're starting to just drop like snippets of truth here and there, because they're thinking, oh boy, we created a monster. Oh yeah, you did. It's called Wahhabism.
So this is like a Frankenstein.
Oh yeah, it's completely out of control. I don't honestly. I mean, people keep saying, and I mean it's a fair argument. Maybe 10 years ago, when people say, America is leading the show, and all those neocons are promoting military interventionism in the Middle East because they want to control natural resources, blah blah blah. Yeah, to a point. But now you have to realize, I mean, who's actually financing everything? Saudi Arabia, who is one of the most powerful lobby group in the U.S. and other Western capitals, the Saudis and the Zionists. Yes.
Yep.
It's a reality. I mean, I don't care. People can, call them what they want. But at the end of the day, those two, Tel Aviv and Riyadh, are controlling most of, foreign policies and, the decisions which are being made in Washington and London and Paris and other capitals. That's the reality. So if you look at the way that Saudi Arabia actually blackmailed the United Nations over, its war crimes and its human rights violation, and how it forced Ban Ki-moon to actually make a retraction, a very public one at that, understand how it's working. This is
when Ban Ki-moon was still the Secretary General of the UN, right?
Yeah.
So he's the head honcho of the United Nations, and he's having to go back and apologize because little Saudi family got upset.
Because, Saud wasn't happy.
What, the Shiawarma?
Yeah, no, it's insane. When you think about it, people keep... No, it's even worse. I mean, come on. It was just last week. You had, Mohammed bin Salman, who's like, shy of 30 years old. Okay, he's just, he's leading this war in Yemen. So he's like, I mean, he's a grand war criminal. And he comes to Washington and he sits there with a straight face with Donald Trump, and he actually says that Al-Qaeda and Daesh and all the rest of them were created by Iran, and that Iran is the source of all evil in the world. And I'm like, what?
This makes no sense. Al-Qaeda and Daesh want to kill primarily anyone who doesn't follow this Wahhabi Takfiri mentality.
Yeah, Iran, that would be 90% of the whole of Iran.
Iran is Shia,
that they want dead.
Right? Who are considered heretics. Even normal Sunnis are considered heretics by these guys. And you have this idiot, this imbecile, this donkey, Mohammed bin Salman, turning around and saying that Iran created Al-Qaeda and Daesh. This guy is on drugs.
You want to know why? You want to know the rationale behind it? Because that's the kicker.
Go on.
Where he actually argued that because Iran wants to legitimize its position over the Islamic world, because, they don't call themselves the custodian of the two holy mosques. Okay. This is the crazy, like, pot, kettle, black. Are you completely crazy?
This is, I don't know about you, but this sounds like this is a disaster waiting to happen. This sounds...
No, this is like someone had a psychotic break in Riyadh.
And this idea, now you've mentioned Iran a little bit, and we talked about it at the beginning of the show, there's this idea of this proxy war that constantly you get CNN, BBC, Channel 4, all of these news channels, they keep pushing this idea of there is a proxy war in Yemen going on between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And I'm looking around. I've read a lot of things on Yemen. Of course, you have a book on Yemen. I went through that. I went through other books. And I can't find how Saudi Arabia is fighting Iran in Yemen.
No, there's no proxy. I mean, look, people have this thing right now where, it has to be binary. It has to be this one versus that one. First of all, Yemen is more complicated than that. That's one. But you want to play binary? Let's play.
Okay.
What about we do this? Takfirism, which is basically the definition of, this is what Wahhabism is. This is what Saudi Arabia is.
Okay.
Versus resistance. You want to simplify things. It boils down to that. You have what I call the axis of resistance. So basically the free folks, people who do want to be breathing and standing on their own 2 feet without having some psychos telling them what to do.
Cool.
Or denying their right to humanity. And then, and then you have, Takfiri insanity on the other side of the border.
So it's really a case, you're saying, that this really, if there is a war between two forces, if you like, then it's a war between Takfirism and resistance.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty much that. I mean, there's a lot of layers in between, and it's more complicated than that. You can't. But if you really need to kind of like simplify it and try to get like the very core of the issue, yes, this is what it is. You have basically, like I said, people who want to be independent and free, because last time I checked, we were born free. Versus people trying to enslave you. But it's, the eternal battle, good versus evil and, light versus darkness. This is it. This is what it is.
Okay.
But people want to call it something else. It's not a proxy. It's very clear.
Okay, and we're rapidly running out of time here, so very quickly. So you have this idea of Takfirism, which is like, to use Star Wars terminology, is the dark side of the Force.
Yep.
Right? And you have resistance, which is the good side of the Force. But what exactly does resistance mean? How do we know what is resistance and what is revolution? What is it? What does it mean? I mean, resistance
I'm not going to
scientifically...
tell you. I'm going to be quoting someone else.
Who are you quoting?
I'm going to quote this man. He sits in Iran. Again, Iran. It's a theme in the show. I'm just saying. It's going to come back a lot for those who listen. His name is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. I think you heard of him. He runs Iran pretty much, and other things. And he said, willpower, resistance, firm determination, and steadfastness should bubble from inside the people. Eyes should be open, spirits should rely on God, and our self-confidence should be strong. If we rely on God, and if we trust ourselves, our spirits will become strong in scientific, managerial, and administrative areas. Wow. So basically, he just defined what it means. It's not just resistance. He's talking about what constitutes, what makes a revolutionary mind or person.
Wow.
And basically, resistance, for me anyway, is being in a state of revolution, of perpetual revolution against those who seek to deny your humanity. Because at the end of the day, we need to remember that our humanity, is a gift from God. So who are people to try to take it away from you?
And on that inspiring point, I'm going to bring the show to a close. We hope all of you viewers have enjoyed this first episode of the Shiawarma show. I've been me, and she's been she. And we'll see you next week, same place, same time, on the Shiawarma show. Cut.
That was good.
It was okay.